I see many people with an avoidant attachment style, and over the years I have learned a great deal about the differences between them. Every person has their own story, their own experiences, their own reasons for developing certain emotional patterns, and their own way of navigating relationships. But honestly, what stands out even more to me are the similarities that run across many of them. Because beneath the different personalities, backgrounds, and life experiences, there are often common patterns that appear again and again. These patterns are not about someone being incapable of love or not caring. In many cases, they are about how a person learned to protect themselves emotionally and how those protective strategies continue to influence the way they connect with others. One of the biggest similarities is that many avoidant individuals deeply value independence. They often have a strong belief that they should be able to handle things on their own. They may have learned early in life that relying on others can lead to disappointment, vulnerability, or emotional discomfort. As a result, self-reliance becomes more than a preference. It becomes a form of emotional safety. This is why closeness can sometimes feel complicated for them. A person with avoidant tendencies may genuinely want love, companionship, and emotional connection. They may desire a meaningful relationship just like anyone else. But when that connection begins to feel intense, or when emotions become overwhelming, their protective instincts can appear. The same person who longs for connection may also feel the urge to create distance. The same person who enjoys being close may suddenly need space. The same person who misses someone may struggle to reach out. This internal conflict is one of the most misunderstood parts of avoidant attachment. Many people assume that distance means a lack of feelings. They think that if someone truly cared, they would always move closer. But human emotions are not always that simple. For some people, closeness can activate fears they may not even fully understand. It can bring up fears of losing freedom, being rejected, being controlled, being hurt, or not being enough. Another similarity often seen is difficulty expressing emotions directly. Many avoidant individuals are not necessarily emotionless. In fact, they may feel things very deeply. The challenge is that they may not have developed the comfort or skills needed to communicate those emotions openly. Instead of saying, "I miss you, but I feel overwhelmed," they may simply become quiet. Instead of saying, "I am afraid of getting hurt," they may create emotional distance. Instead of asking for reassurance, they may convince themselves that they do not need it. Their silence can sometimes be a reflection of internal conflict, rather than a complete absence of care. Another common pattern is discomfort with vulnerability. Vulnerability requires allowing another person to see the parts of you that are uncertain, imperfect, or afraid. For someone who has built emotional protection around themselves, this can feel risky. They may feel safer showing competence, independence, and control rather than revealing their softer emotions. But meaningful relationships require vulnerability. They require two people who are willing to be seen, understood, and accepted. This is often where avoidant individuals face their greatest challenge, learning that emotional openness does not always lead to pain. Many avoidant people also share a tendency to process emotions internally before discussing them. While one partner may want to immediately talk through a conflict, an avoidant person may need time to think, calm down, and organize their thoughts. This difference in emotional processing can create misunderstandings. One person may think they do not care because they are quiet. The other person may think, "I need space because I do not know how to handle this right now." Neither person is necessarily trying to hurt the other. They are simply responding from different emotional systems. However, awareness alone is not enough. Healthy relationships require effort from both sides. A person with avoidant tendencies can learn to communicate more openly, while their partner can learn the importance of respecting boundaries and emotional pacing. Growth happens when both people are willing to understand each other rather than simply blame each other. One of the most important things to remember is that attachment styles are patterns, not permanent identities. Someone with avoidant tendencies is not destined to repeat the same behaviors forever. With self-awareness, emotional growth, and healthier relationship experiences, people can develop new ways of connecting. They can learn that needing someone does not make them weak. They can learn that expressing emotions does not mean losing control. They can learn that closeness does not always lead to pain. And they can learn that a healthy relationship is not a threat to independence. It can actually create a deeper sense of security. So when you recognize these similarities, the goal is not to label someone or predict every action they will take. The goal is understanding. Understanding creates compassion. Understanding helps people communicate better. Understanding allows us to see that behind many defensive behaviors, there is often a person who is trying to protect themselves in the only way they know. But understanding should always exist alongside self-respect. Compassion for someone's struggles does not mean ignoring your own emotional needs. A healthy relationship requires care, consistency, honesty, and effort from both people. The most powerful shift happens when someone stops asking only, "Why are they acting this way?" and begins asking, "What do both of us need to create something healthier?" Because at the heart of every attachment pattern is a human being who wants connection, safety, and acceptance. Even those who appear the most distant may still be searching for a place where they feel understood. And sometimes the first step toward deeper connection is not forcing someone to open their heart. It is creating the emotional safety where they no longer feel they have to keep it locked. Something I've come to notice isn't just who a patient is when they first walk through my door, but how their patterns unfold over time as I continue working with them. Their romantic relationships, their family dynamics, the struggles they carry at work, and other layers of complexity in their diagnostic picture that I won't get into on a public platform like this. But the tangled complexity of their lives and relationships comes up constantly in session because it's genuinely one of the things a lot of them wrestle with most. There's something else I don't bring up often in these videos, but it feels worth mentioning here. I also specialize in anger and personality disorders, something I've touched on before. And so, occasionally, you'll see these two threads intersect. I can't say definitively that every avoidant person struggles with anger, but among the patients who come to me specifically for anger issues, the overwhelming majority also carry avoidant attachment patterns, whether fearful avoidant or dismissive avoidant. Part of why I believe there's a correlation is that these individuals often weren't given permission to express their emotions growing up, so those suppressed feelings tend to surface as anger instead. This shows up more frequently in avoidant men specifically, though that's really just an aside I wanted to share. Today's topic is how to recognize when an avoidant person has genuinely bonded with someone emotionally. Maybe it's more accurate to frame it as figuring out who they've actually bonded with. I think this is a genuinely important subject because once an avoidant person forms a real emotional bond with someone, they tend to be deeply committed. They're not the type to casually walk away once that bond exists. Avoidant individuals are remarkably selective about who they let in, and that selectivity plays out almost entirely through the emotional bonding process itself. The first quality that fosters this kind of bond is being someone who's comfortable agreeing to disagree. This helps an avoidant person feel genuinely loved and accepted because it minimizes ongoing conflict, and it signals that you value peace and harmony within the relationship. For avoidant individuals who tend to be naturally conflict avoidant themselves, this brings a real sense of reassurance. It communicates, essentially, that they're allowed to express their own perspective, that the two of you can simply disagree and coexist without one person trying to reshape the other. Interestingly, what tends to happen once someone feels genuinely accepted in their original stance is that they actually become far more open to compromise down the road. One of the biggest reasons avoidant individuals resist change in the first place is because they don't feel truly accepted as they are. But once that sense of acceptance is firmly established, their willingness to bend and grow increases dramatically. So agreeing to disagree isn't just conflict avoidance. It's actually one of the more powerful bonding tools available. The second quality is simply being the person who has stuck around long term. This one is fairly straightforward, but it holds a lot of truth. longevity, and consistency are among the biggest reasons avoidant individuals form deep emotional bonds with someone. Now, to be clear, I'm not suggesting you should stay in a relationship where you're being treated poorly just to prove your staying power. That's not the point here at all. What I am saying is that most avoidant individuals deeply value continuity. If your relationship hasn't been a constant cycle of breaking up and getting back together, that steady presence tends to mean a great deal to them. They genuinely cherish a partner who has simply remained there, supportive and steady, someone who makes them feel secure and comfortable over time. I've mentioned this pattern before, and it tends to show up slightly more with fearful avoidant individuals, specifically. Once they've truly made up their mind about wanting something, they tend to hold on to it fiercely. Think about how they approach buying a house. They'll take an enormous amount of time researching, weighing every option, being incredibly deliberate. But once they finally commit to that house, that's it. They're all in. Same story with a car. And people are really no different in that regard. Once an avoidant person decides someone is genuinely their person, they feel deeply safe with that individual, and they don't want to lose them. So, if you two have been together for a considerable stretch of time, odds are strong they're not going anywhere anytime soon. You might choose to leave, that's always your choice, but they're generally not the ones initiating an exit once that bond has solidified. The third quality avoidant individuals deeply appreciate is self-awareness, particularly self-awareness around behaviors that might trigger their avoidant tendencies, though really self-awareness in general matters here too. Let's say, for example, you recognize that you've been texting them a bit excessively while they're at work, and you understand that this pattern genuinely frustrates them. Acknowledging that pattern and expressing a real desire to work on it for the sake of the relationship, rather than simply expecting them to be the one who adjusts or compromises, is something avoidant individuals find incredibly attractive, almost magnetic, honestly. This might be one of the single most powerful bonding factors on this entire list. They form deep attachment to people who demonstrate this kind of self-reflection. Closely related to that is the fourth quality, genuine mutual apologizing. Naturally, both people in a relationship should be willing to apologize when it's warranted. I'm not suggesting you should always be the one to apologize first. Absolutely not. But generally speaking, when both partners model this behavior consistently, avoidant individuals respond really positively to it because it makes them feel safe enough to be vulnerable themselves. It shows them that their needs can actually be met within the relationship too. So imagine offering something like, "I'm sorry, I know I was texting a lot more than usual. I was feeling anxious, but that wasn't fair to you, and I really hope you can forgive me. It's something I'm actively working on." That kind of apology accomplishes several things simultaneously. It encourages your avoidant partner to feel more comfortable apologizing when they make their own mistakes, and it reinforces their sense that this relationship truly belongs to both of you equally. Avoidant individuals often hold back emotionally within relationships, not out of malice, but because deep down they don't fully believe their needs will actually be honored. So when you apologize genuinely, you're essentially communicating that their needs matter just as much as yours do. You're saying, in effect, "I'm sorry I didn't consider how this would affect you. I want to prioritize your needs alongside my own." That single act reinforces commitment within the relationship. It teaches them that apologizing is safe and welcome, and it reassures them that they can fully accept this relationship without fear because you're someone who genuinely acknowledges what they need. This dynamic is foundational to their sense of commitment, to their capacity to love deeply, and to their willingness to bond and stay. That mutual vulnerability tends to encourage further growth and openness from both sides, and avoidant individuals hold enormous respect for partners capable of this kind of honesty. It genuinely inspires them to mirror that same behavior back. The fifth quality is responding with less reactivity when circumstances don't go exactly as you'd hoped. Let's walk through an example. Say you're someone with an anxious, preoccupied attachment style, and seeing your partner every other day feels essential to your sense of security. That need is completely valid and understandable. Now imagine your partner is avoidantly attached and genuinely isn't in a place where he can commit to that frequency. He might only feel capable of seeing you once a week right now, while you're hoping for every other day. Neither of you is wrong here. You're both entitled to your needs, but there's clearly a mismatch that needs addressing. Let's say this tension has been building for a while, and eventually he reaches a breaking point and says something like, "I genuinely can't commit to seeing you every other day right now. I need more personal time. My job is demanding. Maybe I've got a side project going on too. I'm just stretched thin." In a moment like this, it's not that he doesn't care about you. He's communicating that he simply cannot offer that level of frequency at this particular moment, and he doesn't know exactly when that might change. He's essentially saying, "This is what I can genuinely offer right now, and if it's not enough for you, I understand if you need to walk away." This kind of honesty is fairly common among avoidant individuals. Now, how you respond in that moment matters enormously. If the reaction is something like, "You obviously don't care about me, this isn't fair, this isn't healthy or normal, maybe you should go to therapy, you're so emotionally distant, you have no idea how unloved this makes me feel," that kind of response will likely make him even less willing to open up emotionally because he'll feel cornered and unsafe. But if instead the response sounds more like, "Honestly, I am a little disappointed, this isn't quite what I was hoping for, but I really appreciate you being upfront with me about it. I do still want to be with you. I still want to make this work, and understanding your reasoning helps me make sense of why the frequency I want isn't realistic right now. I can work with seeing each other once a week for now, and maybe we can revisit this conversation once things settle down at work or once we feel more securely connected." That kind of measured, non-reactive response tends to immediately lower his defenses. He no longer feels trapped or cornered, and he can recognize that you're genuinely willing to accept him as he currently is. That acceptance often motivates him to offer more over time, or to actively work toward giving you more of what you're hoping for, simply because he felt understood and loved in that vulnerable moment rather than attacked. The sixth quality is a general preference for peace over volatility. Avoidant individuals gravitate strongly toward this, and I imagine most of you already sense that intuitively. Anyone who prioritizes keeping the relationship calm or who addresses conflict amicably rather than escalating into big emotional blow-ups tends to earn deep appreciation from an avoidant partner. To be clear, this doesn't mean issues should never be raised, and it doesn't mean walking on eggshells around each other constantly. It simply means recognizing when a particular conversation is becoming too heated or overwhelming for either of you to productively handle in that moment, and being willing to say something like, "Let's pause on this for now. I don't want this to turn into a fight." Overall, our relationship is genuinely strong, and this doesn't need to derail that. Let's set this aside for now. Go do something enjoyable together, grab some food, get some fresh air, and come back to this conversation another time when we're both in a better headspace. Thank you for being open with me about this, but I don't think it needs to be fully resolved today, especially since it seems like neither of us is quite ready right now. That kind of approach genuinely works well for avoidant individuals. You can still work through disagreements together, but once a conversation crosses a certain intensity threshold, stepping back, doing something lighthearted, and revisiting the issue later tends to be far more effective than pushing through in the heat of the moment. Avoidant individuals form remarkably strong emotional bonds with partners who handle conflict this way. And the final quality, which I think is genuinely essential, and something a lot of avoidant individuals don't even realize they need until they actually experience it, and then they treasure it deeply, is having tolerance for small, everyday mistakes. I think most people generally want this from a partner, honestly. Creating space for minor missteps without turning every small thing into a major reprimand helps build an environment that feels genuinely comfortable and safe. It reduces the sense of being constantly judged or scrutinized within the relationship, which makes the relationship itself feel like a safe space where mistakes can happen and simply be repaired rather than punished. I actually witnessed a great example of this recently in one of my sessions, and this pattern shows up constantly, not just with avoidantly attached individuals specifically, but in relationships broadly, so I'm not sharing anything identifying here. It's particularly common among married couples. Picture a scenario where one partner says something like, "I don't mind you going out and doing your own thing, but I'd really appreciate it if you could be back by a certain time, just because I worry about you." This isn't controlling, it's mutual. Nobody's forcing anything here. Maybe there are children involved. Maybe someone has an early work obligation the next day. So the arrangement is simple. Go out, enjoy time with friends, but try to be home by around 1 in the morning on a Saturday night, say, because there are things that need to happen the next day to prepare for the week ahead. Now imagine the avoidant partner in this scenario loses track of time and doesn't get home until 2 instead of 1. He comes home, gets into bed next to his partner, and in the morning says something like, "Hey, I ended up staying out a bit later than planned last night, but I feel fine. I think we're okay. I just wanted to let you know I got in around 2. That's a small, completely human mistake, nothing catastrophic, nothing rooted in any deeper attachment issue. Some people might respond to that with an intense reaction, demanding to know exactly what he was doing, who he was with, treating it like a major betrayal. But instead, imagine the response sounds more like, "I appreciate you telling me. You know there was a specific reason I mentioned the timing. We've got that early flight tomorrow. Or we agreed you'd handle the first stretch of driving so I could get some work done on my laptop," whatever the underlying reason happened to be. The point is, there was a legitimate reason behind the original request, and the avoidant partner made a small error in judgment, prioritizing something else over that commitment. That's a genuine, if minor, mistake, not a character flaw, but still something worth acknowledging, and it's completely fair for the other partner to feel a bit frustrated about it. But here's where tolerance comes in. The response might continue with something like, "I hear what you're saying. We might have a slower morning than planned or need to rush a bit to get ready, but I appreciate you being upfront and telling me what happened. Just keep in mind for next time." That kind of response holds space for genuine tolerance without completely dismissing the impact of the mistake, and without ignoring it either, saying something like, "Oh, it's totally fine, don't worry about it," when it genuinely did create a minor inconvenience. The fact that this partner maintained her own honest perspective while still extending grace and understanding is really the most important piece of this whole dynamic. Avoidant individuals bond most deeply with partners who can stay authentically themselves throughout these moments. You're absolutely allowed to feel frustrated. That doesn't mean you need to suppress it or tiptoe around your own feelings. But it's important to understand that tolerating small mistakes doesn't mean you can never bring them up. It simply means you're choosing not to punish or harshly reprimand your partner over something relatively minor. I hope all of that made sense. To recap quickly, we covered being willing to agree to disagree, being a long-term consistent presence, demonstrating self-awareness, being willing to genuinely apologize, responding without excessive reactivity, prioritizing peace over volatility, and holding space for small, forgivable mistakes. If you're already doing most of these things, or if you're actively working on strengthening your connection with your partner or repairing your marriage, these are genuinely powerful elements to weave into your relationship, and they tend to significantly deepen emotional bonding over time. I hope this video was genuinely helpful for you. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.